good evening, you big, beautiful, fantastic rock. Welcome to the podcast of Brothers of Many Words. I am your host, RP.
I am your co-host, King Mackie.
Special guest Christopher Wilkins.
Special guest, Christopher Wickens. How is everybody doing this evening?
Wonderful, wonderful.
Loving life.
For everybody had a great week this week?
Yes.
Can't complain.
Yeah, enjoyed that beautiful rain that came through this past weekend.
Yeah, no doubt. It rained hard here too as well.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's greening up. Flowers are coming out.
That's right.
I do agree.
Allergies are raging like the son of a For sure. For sure. Okay, we're going to start it off with a little bit of positivity here, a little bit of positivity. So, success in life is not about reaching a single destination, but about who you become through the journey. How you rise after failure, how you stay focused when distractions call, and how you keep moving forward when progress feels invisible. Every disciplined choice, every moment of resilience, and every act of belief in yourself compounds over time. Trust the process, honor your growth, and understand that the life you desire is being built daily through your consistency, mindset, and unwavering commitment.
Shay, I like that.
Yes, yes.
Sir. Yes,
Always
sir. And
uplifting.
sometimes, man, in this, it's hard when you're going through that process and on that journey because you can't see the success at the end, especially when you're doing the same thing every single day without any result. It certainly makes it hard, but you must stay committed to get to that point.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
All right. Purpose of the podcast. Purpose of the podcast here. The purpose of the podcast is to have open discussions on various subjects by the way of reading books and articles related to topics picked, which would allow us to discuss, review, debate, and enlighten ourselves along the way, as well as those who wish to join us on this beautiful journey. This year's topic is Origins of Religions. And so far, the books that we've done, the information is absolutely fascinating. Stuff that I didn't know, and it's very interesting, to think about these civilizations so long ago were so powerful, and life existed on a tremendous and grand scale, to say the least.
Right. Yeah, and to see our system ingrained into the ancient systems is amazing too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Our modern systems. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's based off of those. So
it is true.
Just as we evolve as humans, so does everything else. Religion, governance, and all of it. Just a continuing cycle, if you will.
Yes.
Okay, Chris is going to kick us off this evening.
New book day.
Yes.
That's right. The Ancient Kingdoms of Africa. Very good book.
Phenomenal book, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to start off with the first topic on the introduction, why ancient Egypt matters in the first place. So when I was reading the introduction of this book, one of the first things that stood out to me is that Egypt is not just being presented as another old kingdom. It's being presented as one that was one of the earliest, greatest civilizations on Earth, and maybe one of the most influential. What's interesting in this book, that it doesn't just talk about Egypt in terms of monuments or famous names. It talks about Egypt as a civilization foundation. We're talking about architecture, mathematics, medicine, language, art, government, religion, and systems of order that help shape the ancient world. So when people think about Egypt only through the lens of pyramids or King's Tut or Cleopatra, they're really only looking at the surface. So the bigger point is that Egypt became a model. The book makes that clear. It says Egypt did not just rise and exist in isolation. It became something later civilizations looked at with admiration. Even the Greeks and the Romans, who came much later than Egypt, were deeply impressed by the Egyptian culture. So Egypt was not just powerful in its own day, its influence stretched far beyond its timeline. Another thing I found important in the introduction is the contrast the authors make between Egypt's greatness and Egypt's instability. Even though this was a civilization that produced world-changing achievements, it was never some perfect, untouched society. It went through political struggle, conquest, outside pressure, and also internal turmoil. To me, that makes it even more meaningful because it shows the greatness is not the absence of struggle. Greatness is what a people build in the middle of it. And that's more of the philosophical takeaways for me. Egypt wasn't just great because life was easy. Egypt was great because it created order, beauty, and power in the world that was always threatening to fall into chaos. And I think that's part of why Egypt still fascinates people now. It represents the human drive to build something lasting in the middle of uncertainty. So the introduction really sets the tone by saying that this is not just the history of kings and kingdoms, but it looks like one of the first places where human beings organize themselves into something enduring, symbolic, and world-shaping. So the question I have is, do you think what made Egypt so legendary was mainly its monuments and visible achievements? Or was it really the deeper systems, government, religion, writing, and culture that made it so influential?
I believe Egypt's monuments, like the pyramids, made it visible, but the deeper system made it influential and lasting. I believe ancient, Egypt's real power came from organized government, radical or religious structures, the writing, recording, and communication systems that it created, and also culture continuity over generations. Really, the monuments gave an evidence of greatness, but the system itself gave a reason for greatness. Just my thoughts.
Right on.
Mm-hmm. And just to expand on that, Peru, I agree with that. The what the world sees, is the massive temples and pyramids like Giza and Karnak and Luxor, and the art and the gold that they found within these institutions when they dug them out and whatnot, and the engineering feats to build those things. And so
Right.
with the wealth and the organization, that made an impression, a legendary impression, excuse me, on us and whatnot. You mentioned the government and the order. Their system lasted 3,000 years. 3,000
Yes, it
years.
did.
With the writing, with the hieroglyphics, the economy. Living by the Nile River, as we have come to see, was an important part of the foundation of most of these places. So, the systems, created the monuments. The monuments preserved the systems. You
Right.
can't have one without the other. They both
Right.
need each to exist.
Right. Yeah.
100%.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd say that the monuments made Egypt memorable, but the systems made it influential.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Pyramids were, the pyramids and the temple were visible proof of the civilization that already had strong government
Absolutely.
and religious structure. And I think it was the two
Yeah.
that kind of held everything together. Egypt wasn't just primarily a one thing society.
Yeah. Yeah. Because without the system, you couldn't coordinate to build the pyramids. You wouldn't be able to preserve knowledge or long-term stability. So it's necessary.
Yeah, I definitely do not believe on the thought that a lot of people think that slaves built the pyramid. There's no way.
No.
That's right.
No.
That's right. And from reading what we've read so far, that's absolutely not the case.
Right.
It's just like they equated it to, from what I've read, like the draft, so to speak. So
Right.
you had your time to come in, you worked 3 months or so, and then you get to go home to your family. But it was not built by slaves.
Right.
Not at all. All right, man. On to the next topic: the unification of Egypt and the birth of the state. The formation of the Egyptian state. The second major idea I want to talk about is about the formation of Egyptian state itself. Because before Egypt became the Egypt we think about today, it had to first become one nation. And according to the book, that process centered around the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt around 3100 BCE under Menes, who's also sometimes identified as Nermir, who, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Nermir.
I'll take it.
What matters most here is not just the name, but what the unification meant. Before that point, Egypt was not one unified political body. It was divided culturally and geographically, and those divisions were very real. The points out that the Upper and Lower Egypt even had a distinct cultural differences, including differences in pottery, which tells us that this was not just a simple line in the map. These were separate worlds that had to be brought together, and the text makes it very clear that this unification was definitely not peaceful in some soft symbolic sense. It was very forceful, and it was political and military. That's where Namir Palati becomes so important. The book uses it almost like a window into the birth of the Egyptian kingship. Namir is depicted as a conquering king, and the imagery shows domination, violence, and authority. So right from the beginning, the Egyptian state seems to have been built on the idea that order had to be established by strength.
Right.
And that matters because once Egypt was unified, the king no longer was just a tribal leader or a local ruler. He became the symbol of unity itself. The state became embodied in the king, and the idea would carry forward through all of Egyptian history. Another important piece here is Memphis. The book explains that Memphis was chosen not just for religious reasons later on, but for practical and strategic reasons. It sat on a powerful location between Upper Egypt and the Delta, making it the ideal political center. So the Egyptian state was just not built through conquest. It was also built through replacement, administration, and the creation of a central power seat. That's what makes this section so interesting. The formation of the Egyptian state showed that civilizations begins when power becomes organized. Not just the power to conquer, but also the power to hold things together. A kingdom doesn't endure just because somebody wins a war. It endures because somebody builds structure after the war is won. So in a way, the formation of the Egyptian state is really the story of chaos being forced into order. Two lands become one, and a ruler became a king, and a region became the civilization.
Yes.
So the question I got for this section is, what was the true foundation of Egypt? Its cultural identity, or was it the forceful political unification under Menes or Namir that made Egyptian civilization possible in the first place?
Well, you had touched on it when you said before there was even, Minister, they had to come together first. They had to share cultural identity first. They had to come together first. So people did, and so before him, Egypt had already shared, a deep identity along the Nile, and so before that, through the inundation, which was the flooding of the Nile, which came every year, that that provided a common rhythm for survival, so they know when that would come. And the shared beliefs, they believed in the gods of Horus and the concept of divine order, cultural symbols, the way the burial practices, the rituals
Yes.
were already foundational.
Mm-hmm.
The trade and interaction of Upper and Lower Egypt that already were connected together. So when Namor came, what he did when he came into power, he unified both the Upper and the Lower Egypt under one ruler. And that established the divine kingship of Pharaoh, which created that centralized government. So with the shared culture, that turned into a structured civilization.
Man, bro, that was beautiful, bro. That was beautiful, all put together.
Yes, it
I,
was.
I have to agree. I mean, there's nothing else to be said about that. There's nothing else to be said. Culture identity played a huge role in it. Sharing beliefs, like I said, language and traditions, as you both have already mentioned. The force, itself created structure, but the culture was its true unity.
100%. Yeah, Egyptian they're definitely was very religious, and everything was tied together around that. But all right, so topic 3. What turned a united kingdom into a true civilization? So the formation of Egyptian civilization. This third topic is happened after Egypt was unified. Because winning territory is one thing, but becoming a civilization is something much deeper. What this section reveals, it really shows that once Egypt became politically unified, it started developing the core features that made it lasting civilization. The book emphasizes that writing was one of the most important of those features. Once a people can write, one of the most important of those features, then you can have trade, have law, belief, memory, instruction, identity, and power. So writing turns a people from temporary into historical. The book especially points out wisdom to literature and didact texts. That stood out to me because it showed that Egypt was not only building monuments, it was building mindset. They were teaching values, conduct, justice, and order. So civilization in Egypt was not just the stone and wealth; it was moral formation too. And that ties directly into a huge theme in the section: kingship. Egyptian civilization developed around a very strong idea of divine kingship. The king was not just seen as a political ruler; he was tied to the cosmic order. He was associated with Horus in life and Osiris or Ra in death. That king's role was to preserve the Ma'at: order, truth, balance, and righteousness. That's a massive concept because it means leadership in Egypt was just not about command. It was about maintaining harmony between heaven, society, and the land. That idea shaped everything. Land ownership, religion, labor, public works, and social hierarchy. The book explains that the king technically owned the land, and large parts of society operated through systems tied to the crown to the temple foundations. So civilization in Egypt was built through a fusion of religion, politics, economy, and symbolism, and none of them really stood alone. Memphis comes back in the picture here as well, not just as a capital, but as a center of both practical and sacred power. That tells us something important, that in ancient Egypt, the spiritual and the political were never really separated. Civilization was never divided into neat modern categories. It was always integrated as one world. So for me, the biggest takeaway from this section is that the Egyptian civilization became powerful because it built meaning into its own structure. It was not just organized. It believed it was, and it had its own little way of between religion and political power. And that's, when the kingdoms becomes more than a government, that's when it becomes a civilization. So for my last question here, what do you think was more essential to the rise of Egyptian civilization? The development of writings and shared culture, or the belief in divine kingship and cosmic order through Ma'at?
I think it was all three combined together, that established that. The writing shared this culture. It created, like I said, that continuity between generations, created laws and beliefs, like you already mentioned before, building on an identity amongst the people under one kingship, which was very important. Mayat gave it a sense of authority to legitimacy, as well establishing moral and cosmic, order, which was very important for most people. And if we realize, even through the other books we have written or read, even like the Kingdom of Punt, when they introduced Christianity, it brought that moral and that legitimacy and that authority, to itself as well. So we realize how important that is to other kingships or kingdoms. But writing preserved the system, and Mayat justified the stability of the system, is what I would say.
Yeah, and I'll just piggyback off that. They both reinforced each other.
Mm-hmm.
Maya, as Eru was talking about, represented truth, balance, and the cosmic order.
Mm-hmm.
It defined what was right in both the universe and society. And so, with that, the role of the Pharaoh, he was considered a living god by maintaining Maya.
Right.
Which gave him political authority and spiritual responsibility. And that created stability that lasted thousands of years.
Right.
And so with the writing, that enabled the record keeping, the taxation, preserved the religious texts and traditions, which is had been found through the archaeological digs and whatnot, is shared identity across regions. And so this made Egypt efficient and
Mm-hmm.
intellectually advanced and culturally unified. So, without the writing, Egypt becomes not that efficient. Knowledge
Right.
is lost.
Right.
But with it, as we see, writing is the tool, culture is the bond.
Yeah.
Maya was the operating system for all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. They
100%, brother.
Yeah. Yeah. They even state the 42 laws of Mayat. The 10 commandments come from the 42 laws of Mayat. That's
Really?
yeah. Uh-huh. Yep. Yeah.
Have
That's
you guys read
interesting.
those?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're profound because they sound simple. You know what I mean? It's
They
not.
are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they sound simple to live
Yeah.
by.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was actually looking for that part in the book where it said one of those didactic texts.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot to label it. I was wanting to read it. That's all right.
Yeah. Yeah. That when I found that out, that amazed me all by itself. That not only is there 10 commandments, but there's possibly 32 more.
Wild, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that the kingship and the Mayat were definitely core because they gave Egypt its order,
Mm-hmm.
authority, and purpose. But also the writing and the shared culture is what preserved and spread that order. So both matter, just in different ways.
I do agree. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that's all I got for that section.
That was outstanding, brother. So we'll be moving on to the Pyramid Age, and I have that section right there. So the Pyramid Age was through the third and fourth dynasties. The time
Mm-hmm.
frame was 2686 to 2494 BCE. It was called the Age of the Pyramids. So these pyramids were massive.
Yes.
They believed that the pharaohs were the divine kings on earth. That's where they were buried at. And so the first one was commissioned by Pharaoh D. Djoser, I believe. It's the first pyramid ever built. And it was designed by Imhotep. Now,
Yep.
Imhotep, if we go by that name today in the movies The Mummy, he is portrayed
Right.
as a bad individual. However, in ancient times, antiquity, he was not. He was quite fascinating, actually. He was an architect, engineer, a physician, a high priest. He
Mm-hmm.
designed. It was through his knowledge and his vision that he's the father, as I say, of the pyramid, so to speak. Through him, through his first design, is how would laid the foundation for future pyramids to be.
Right.
And why that matters, he told the first pyramids were built by mastodons. They were mud bricks, which later improved to cut stone production. And that was during the third dynasty. Now, the fourth dynasty was the golden age of the pyramid construction. Key pharaohs Senefru, Kahufu, Kahafri, and Menakuri. I hope I'm saying those guys right. Yeah. So they built massive structures, massive structured pyramids. They were highly organized labor force. They were not slaves. They were still workers. Seasonal workforce during the Nile. Advanced knowledge of mathematics, geometry, astronomy. Um, the religious and cultural purpose of the pyramids was tuned for the pharaohs I had mentioned earlier. They reflected belief in eternal life, divine kingship, and as we're talking about cosmic order, the Maya. And so, why that matters, it marks one of humanity's first large-scale engineering revolutions. It shows the power of unified state and centralized leadership, produced monuments that still stand 4,500 years later. And so, Imhotep, he sparked it, turning simple tombs into monumental structure. Senefru perfected it, solving engineering challenges. Kahufu maximized it, building the greatest pyramid ever, the Pyramid of Giza. And Egypt proved it. The ancient Africa led the world in innovation, organization, and vision. So my first question, how did the transition from mastodons to pyramids reflect a deeper shift in Egyptian civilization?
Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say it's all good. I was gonna say that the shift from mastodons to pyramids showed that Egypt was moving from simple royal burial toward a more advanced civilization centered on divine kingship, so state power and sacred symbolism. Their pyramid was not a bigger tomb; it reflected a culture with stronger theology, centralized authority, and a far more advanced organization and engineering.
So well said. You know,
Mhm.
what to say. And that's so well said. The pyramids built on Imhotep just created a supreme architect, if you would say, in some particular way.
Mhm.
Gave a
Mhm.
simple of assertion, a pyramid shape beyond, shape pointing up to the heavens. Gave some,
Mhm.
earth and heavenly based concept, a reflection of the king's divine nature, also a public display of state power and unity. You know, and it's amazing to this day that they stated that these pyramids, or the pyramid of Giza, was the tallest building in the world for over 4,000 years. Tallest in the world for over 4,000 years. That's amazing. And then
Yep.
even to this day, it is still debatable. It is still debatable on how the pyramids were actually built.
I mean, if we want to talk about outside the text, I have my own personal beliefs.
Let's go with it.
And I honestly don't think the Egyptian civilization that we think of in modern terms are the ones that actually built that. There's not really a lot of evidence, especially no blueprints laying around or nothing how they built it. It's a lot of mostly it's hearsay, and there's no way we can reconstruct them now. So they must have been more advanced than we are.
I do agree.
I mean,
I definitely do agree. When you start looking into the Ark of the Covenant, I think people misconstrue really what that was based upon what I understand. It was some type of electrical device, possibly even like a cutting tool. You know what I mean? Of advanced technology, because when you look into these stones of the pyramid, they were cut precise. When you look into the mathematics of the pyramids where they were built, it's superior to all things in this world. You know what I mean? And so it would make you wonder how the perfection itself was created. And so there are a lot of theories on that.
To this day, they've still never found anyone buried in a pyramid.
I've read otherwise. Matter of fact, I believe Kofu's father, who was Sufner, I believe he was buried. Matter of fact, wasn't he the first one they built a tomb and was the first one buried? No, Josper.
Yeah, what I mean is the big one.
Ah, that's what's up. Okay, right.
The big one. I mean, yeah, all the other small ones that are insignificant, and we could definitely probably do those today, the smaller ones, but those weren't really anything comparable to the actual Pyramid of Giza.
True. That's absolutely true.
I mean, and actually some of them that were first built were crooked.
Yeah.
They had different degrees, and so they had to change it.
Yeah, they did. Flat roofed. You know, they were actually flat roofed. Didn't have a point to them at all. So yeah, I do agree with you on that. Like I said, I've read some, you know, of like Osiris. He had a tomb, but he wasn't inside of his tomb. So I've heard they found some tombs of burial of mummies, but actually some of them not actually being inside the tomb itself. I believe in the last book we read by Church Ward, he mentioned of a couple of, you know, particular deities who were buried in the Egyptian tombs. But I have to go back and reference that, Chris, just to follow up with you.
Gotcha. I think there is a couple in the Great Pyramid of Giza, the big one, but I think they were empty.
Right, and I do agree. Like I said, I've actually read that a lot of them were empty for sure. Matter of fact, I know Osiris' tomb was empty. He is related to the concept of Jesus anyway, of the rising of Jesus Christ. So yeah, I do believe his tomb was empty. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Cool. 1 second, gentlemen. Okay, hold on 1 second.
So I did find that part in the book where it showed the didact texts.
Okay,
go ahead.
All right, I thought that was interesting. So it says, this is one of the didacts that were written in the Old Kingdom. If you are a man who leads, who controls every beneficent deed, that your conduct may be blameless. Great is justice, lasting in effect, unchallenged since the time of Osiris. One punishes the transgressor of laws, through the greedy overlooks this. Baseness may seize riches, yet crime never lands its wares. In the end, it is justice that lasts. And then the other text that goes along with this, because it's a didact, there's always two.
Mhm.
Says, cleanse yourself before your own eyes, lest another cleanse you. Take a hardy wife, a son will be born you. It is for the son you build a house. When you make a place for yourself, make good your dwelling in the graveyard. Make worthy your station in the west, given that death humbles us, given that life exalts us. The house of death is for life.
Mm.
So seek for yourself well-watered fields. I thought that was pretty awesome. I liked it a lot.
Yeah,
A lot of wisdom in those very simple texts.
sounds a little Masonic there.
A little bit.
Sorry, gentlemen. Okay. You have to forgive me here.
Yes, sir.
One second.
Has some difficulty problems over there. Some technical stuff.
Yeah, man. Hold on one second. Okay. Okay, so
Uh,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Bear with me here, Jim.
uh, Yeah, so I'm just going to even update Chris on some things that Robert and I had talked about. So what we're also looking to do is to reach out to some historians, and right now, since we're on the concept of ancient Africa, we're looking to reach to some HBU schools and reaching out to some professors and having them come on so we can interview them and discuss some topics with them. So that's we just want to update everybody, and of course, we'll update Chris on what we're looking to do next.
Right on. That's legit, man. That's
Yeah.
legit.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun.
All right, here we go. Sorry about that. But yeah, that's something we were talking about, and I think that'd be very, very cool. We can get people to come on and discuss these beautiful topics with us as well.
Especially a professor that's open to the new findings, and it's not stuck in the old ways of archaeological findings.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So my next bullet point is in the form of a question. So, how did the pyramid age during the third and fourth dynasties elevate Egyptian culture philosophically, spiritually, religiously, including Imhotep in that process? So philosophically, it was the human ingenuity, meets divine order. Imhotep's design of the step pyramid, as Chris was talking about, symbolized a shift from simple tomb to complex monuments.
Right.
And with the, embodying the idea of materialized the cosmic order of the earth, which brought forth the concept of Maya. The pyramids reflected the harmony between heaven and earth, legacy of rational thought, the precision in the construction of the pyramid encouraged absolutely mathematical, architectural, and engineering reasoning. From a spiritual point of view, it was a pathway to the afterlife. If I'm not mistaken, the Egyptians lived their life in order to prepare for the afterlife.
Absolutely.
So the pyramids were not just tombs; they were spiritual vehicles. ensuring the pharaoh's souls reach the afterlife. Imhotep's innovations laid the foundation for ritual funerary architecture. The integration of humans with the divine, the workers, the priests, the rulers participated in the ceremonies that tied the everyday life to cosmic cycles. Um, the religious transformation, Pharaoh was a god on earth, and he was treated just as such. The pyramids emphasized the pharaoh's divinity and his religious sensuality to the leadership. Um, the standardized of funeral religion. The pyramids rituals codified prayers, offerings, and ceremony. So, core takeaways from that is philosophically, the pyramids symbolize order, rationality, and human ability to emulate the divine. Spiritually, they offered hope, continuity, and a pathway to eternal life. Religiously, they solidified the divine status and gave the hero worship of visionaries like Imhotep. So my question is, Pyramid Age integrate philosophy, spirituality, and religion in unified cultural system? And how did the innovations of Imhotep catalyze this holistic elevation of Egyptian civilization for centuries to come?
Um, so I believe the age of the pyramids of ancient Egypt, there is no separation between philosophy, religion, and spirituality. It unified our worldview. I think that was important to understand. And then Mayat just centered that worldview as well. But Imhotep, being the great engineer he was, it gave it transferred it transformed Egypt into like a show me state. Who? We live in Missouri, y'all. Just to let you guys know.
Go, Missouri. That's
There you
right,
go.
man. Big Mo, the Big Mo.
So it defined human intelligence, defined belief, and the state power could work together to create something timeless and orderly. And it impacted them long term, setting a blueprint for future pyramids, evaluated architectural and sacred science, and it helped establish Egypt's civilization for centuries to come. That's what I got on that, brothers.
Definitely. The Pyramid Age definitely unified. The Pyramid Age unified Egypt's religion, kingship, architecture, and the cosmic order under the idea that the pharaoh maintained sacred balance. So, Amenhotep helped launch that at a higher level by designing the step pyramids and advancing the monumental stone building, turning architectural into both a spiritual system and a civilization model that shaped Egypt for centuries. Yep.
Man, that sounds so much like Masonic point of view. the builders.
I mean, I think Thoth was part of Masons, man.
I totally agree. It just wasn't called masonry then. You know what I mean? The mysteries. It was defined as the mysteries, but right. I definitely agree with you on that, Chris, for sure.
It was a school.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. I mean, even in masonry, it's 300,000 years old. Matter of fact, excuse me, Albert Churchward, a third degree Mason, wrote a book 100 years ago stating that the Masonic order itself was 600,000 years old. And then when you start to look into the Eastern Stars, which is the female side of Masonry, they're older than the Masonic point of view itself. I thought that was amazing when you start diving deep into that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, before then they probably weren't called the Masons.
No, they weren't. Yeah, I mean, I know the Greeks knew them as the mysteries, and I believe that's why so many of the other kingdoms like Nubia started to integrate their political power and their religious spiritual structure based upon the Egyptians.
Yeah, there's a lot of symbolism in the the masonry and the building of buildings back then.
Right.
And symbols.
Right.
Even this little off topic, but the runes that the Vikings drew, if you date those back, those symbols, there is some similarities between them, but I think it's something we don't understand, and that I think technology and science was built into these buildings, and we today don't have the mindset to understand that type of technology. It's information that's not valid in our brains right now, and that's why we don't understand how they built them. But
I agree with that.
Yeah, I do agree. Yeah, it's deep, man. Once in church, Albert Churchward's book, he talks about a massive exodus that even the Mayans and the Aztecs were all kind of considered a part of. When you start looking to the symbolism, that's what Churchward actually uses as his whole concept of his foundation, was being able to read the hieroglyphs and the symbolism, so he could go to other cultures, around the world, in Asia and China and things like that, and be able to see the symbolism that came out of Egypt and be able to correlate them all together based upon the Exodus.
Wow.
Very good. Very good. All right, moving on. In the later Old Kingdom, during the 5th and 6th dynasties, how did the construction of the pyramid change? Well, during that time, the 5th and 6th dynasties, which were 2494 to 2181 BCE, there was a decrease in size and monumentality of the pyramids due to central resources shifting to political priorities, less emphasis on overwhelming physical size. There was a decline in construction quality. Instead of the carefully cut stone line blocks, they were rubber cores, smaller, less precise stones, out of casing that eroded quickly. Um, many of those pyramids from the fifth and sixth dynasties today are ruined. They didn't last very long compared to the Pyramid of Giza.
Right.
The rise of the pyramid text, which was a major religious shift. These included spells and prayers, instructions for the afterlife, protection for the king's soul. So
Right.
this was a huge shift, which focused on from the external sides into the internal spiritual content of the pyramid.
Right.
And so there also was a increased emphasis on the solar religion. And as we know, the beginning was the stellar, then the lunar, and then the last was the solar religion. And this was the pharaohs was a greater focus on the sun god Ra. And so the pharaohs were seen as the sons of Ra, not just divine rulers. And so this led to the construction of the sun temples alongside the pyramids, expansion for mortuary complexes, because the more elaborate structures for causeways, valley temples, and offering halls. So political and economic changes. This contributed to smaller pyramids, less consistent quality, eventually weakened the old kingdom authority. So the main difference between the two was, the fourth dynasty was focused on perfection, scale, and engineering mastery. The fifth and sixth dynasties was a shift toward religion, symbolism, and text-based morality. So my question is, how did the introduction of pyramid text transform the purpose of pyramids?
I'd say the pyramid text transformed the pyramids from being seen mainly as royal burial monuments into sacred theological spaces. So they tied the pyramid directly to the king's afterlife, showing that it was meant to help him unite with the gods like Ra and Osiris and ascend in eternal life.
Yeah. Amen to that. Yeah. So before it was just a burial place to protect the king's body and his status. And then, like Chris said, the pyramids got at the soul's journey, the afterlife, joining gods and achieving immortality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I do have, gentlemen, a bonus question here. I just want to speak on this. And so it is the Pyramid of Giza is considered one of the seven wonders of the ancient world.
Right.
How did its construction make an impact on mathematics and astronomy? So it wasn't just a tomb, it was a master class in applied mathematics and sky observation. The mathematical impact, precision geometry at a monumental scale. The pyramid's base is almost perfectly square with sides aligned extremely close to true north. Builders use right angles, straight lines, and proportional design on a massive scale. Early use of ratios and proportions. The pyramid's height to base ratio suggests awareness of consistent proportional systems. Some scholars note relationships close to the constants like pi, and in the design, though debated. Measurement systems and surveying. Construction required standardized units like the royal cubic. They use level ground precisely, align edges symmetrically, maintain consistency through huge distances. Let's see, astronomical impact, aligned with the cardinal directions, which is true north, south, east, and west. They require careful observation of the stars, especially circumpolar stars, to determine direction. They use stellar connections, Orion and their afterlife. They use some theories link the pyramid layout at Giza to the belt of Orion, associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife. Let's see here, the calendar and cosmic cycles, Egyptian sky observations tied, now flooding cycles, agricultural planning. And so deeper, let's see here. So I thought I wanted to bring it up because I thought, the Pyramid of Giza is, pretty fascinating. Did you guys get the question? Did you guys take time to answer that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. 10-4.
I think, go ahead.
How did the construction of the Great Pyramid reflect advanced mathematical thinking rather than simple trial and error building.
I mean, you pretty much answered that question already, brother.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. You really did. I mean, my only thought is that just kind of like an afterthought, right? Egypt wasn't just building structure; they were building a system of thought, a system of thought. You know what I mean? The architectural was belief, the math was order, the leadership was divine responsibility, and the death was a transformation, not an end. I thought that was important to know. Yeah.
And you mentioned Mr. Churchward, and in that book, when he gives all the measurements and the mathematical equations on the pyramid of Giza, it's as Chris said, we can't even begin to comprehend and understand how they came up with the math to do that. And you know how
they also don't show proof of that either.
They didn't show proof of that. They wrote none of that stuff down, so we can guess, how we want, but we have no true idea how they did that. And in relation to about how they followed the stars, as we know the one great year, how they that cycle is over 25,000 years,
right?
And so they followed that. They did that 10 times over 300 years. They followed the stars and the constellations.
Right.
So the knowledge and the information and the mathematical precision that they acquired is unbelievable.
And I'm like,
also, man, in the text it was talking about, and we all know that they, how do they get the big heavy stones? How they lift those up and put them in place? When you think about that, the book says, and I know many archaeologists and scientists will say they use mud ramps. Well, let's think logically about this.
Right.
Okay. Right. What is a mud ramp? A mud ramp is a giant pile of dirt.
Right.
Okay. How tall is that pyramid? It's freaking tall, man. It was one of the tallest buildings in the world for a long time.
Right.
So if to have a mud ramp and either to reach that angle to the height to stack those blocks there, the size of the ramp is too big. It doesn't fit. So in my mind, that logically, there's no way they used mud ramps to bring the big stones up to the pyramid, because where are you going to put the mud ramp? It would have to be just about the same size as the pyramid itself.
True. And these stones weighed over a ton. Like tons.
And
you talking about a mud ramp? I don't think so.
175,000 for one.
The amount of massive dirt you would have to pile that high to make a mud ramp. Right. I mean, that just doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah, I do agree. And then,
but those are just your archaeologists just making up stuff so they can get a name for themselves instead of actually saying what's true.
Right. And even due to certain texts that talked about it, it took 10 to 17 years. You start thinking about a mud ramp, it's going to take twice that time frame to do something like that. Twice that.
Oh yeah.
But they say they use ropes and pulleys too.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't believe that either. I mean, you know how many men it would take to man, that'd be unreal.
Well, they said they had 100,000 men, each day, like they moved like 10 to 12 of those stones a day, and as it progressed further. But as Chris says, it's they didn't keep track. They didn't write that down. They wrote down a lot of stuff, but they didn't write that down. And Go ahead.
Now, I'm just saying, Chris just said something too. Maybe we just don't understand what is written. Do you know what I mean? And we're not allowing ourselves to. I'm a firm believer that we have millions of years of DNA that lies within us, right?
True.
And I believe in order for us to better understand our ancestors, we have to be able to harness that energy. You know what I mean? So I just think that at these times, we don't understand. We just don't understand it. And the information is not fully given to us. We already know a lot of this information has been, oppressed, if you want to say, restricted. And so,
edited.
Or edited. You know what I mean? I mean, even Chris and I and Robert, we've already talked about how there's thousands and millions of books in the Vatican to this day, of our ancestors and how they did things. And so I just really believe that we just don't understand it right now. But you look.
No, we don't, and our modern scientists and archaeologists don't want to admit that.
No.
And I'm not a historian. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a scientist, but I'm also not stupid.
Right.
I have common sense and I can think logically.
Right.
I think most people do, and most people are don't take the time to actually think logically about these things. I think they just open up a book and they listen to their teachers or their historian teachers, and they just say that's what they told me, and it's true.
Right. Right.
And like, well, I'm not smart enough to know, so I'm not going to figure it out.
True.
That's right. And there's two things there. Carew, what you said about, Mr. Churchward, he understood the hieroglyphics.
He
When
did.
he went around the world, he understood. And he also
Mhm.
made the point that most didn't. They
Most
didn't
didn't.
understand what
No.
they were writing. And as to what Chris just said, they don't want to take the time to learn how to do that. And I'm in
Right.
agreement with both of you. I believe the knowledge is there. We just don't want to take the time to do it because it's not easy.
Right.
This is antiquity. These are ancient
Right.
languages.
Right.
I believe it is there, and as you say, mention about the Vatican and things that are housed there. I'm in agreement with you,
Yeah.
and not just there, all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Churchward called out many authors, scientists,
Hmm.
and archaeologists about Egypt itself and being able to read these hieroglyphs. And from what I understand, he was a profound gentleman, just like Imhotep. He was a physician as well too, an Egyptologist. So I mean, to me, that goes a long way. And he also understood the craft. He gave a lot of praise to a lot of different people in his book that were underneath the craft as well, that also holds some secrecy to some things.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So being in the lodge or being a Mason himself and being in a prime position as who he was, I believe he was able to get information that others were not,
Sure,
which makes him a prominent figure in my book.
sure,
Yes, sir. Yeah, you're right.
sure. That's all I have, gentlemen.
All right, all right. So mine is the 12th dynasty. All right. So let me get through my bullet points here. The first bullet point is a society maintains strong leadership without oppression by creating structure, accountability, and shared responsibility. During the Middle Kingdom of ancient Egypt, rulers centralized power, but also they monitored officials more closely, established clear administrative systems, reinforced ethical expectations tied to Mayat. So the key balance here uh, is that strong influence provides order and direction. System of accountability prevent abuse and power. So, um, so the more modern take to this is that strong leadership works best when laws apply to everyone, including leaders. There are checks, advisories, institutions, and public voices, and leadership is led or tied to a moral responsibility, not just authority. So my question is for you brothers today is how can a society maintain strong leadership without allowing it to become oppressive?
Well,
So, go ahead, Chris.
the common people has to have the power and the wealth.
Okay.
Egyptian, I mean, how can a society maintain strong leadership without allowing it to become oppressive? Is that the leaders don't take all of the wealth.
Right.
Look at current our current situation in America today, in the world today. Our leaders are the ones that have all the wealth,
Mm-hmm.
and the people, us, are the ones that don't have it.
Right.
They don't want us to have it because if you have wealth, you have power,
Right.
especially in our society today.
Right. Right.
And I'm gonna piggyback off what Chris just said. And so, you know, leadership is leadership is in principles, not personal power. In ancient Egypt, the idea of Mayat was a moral compass, even for the pharaoh. The leaders were expected to uphold the order, justice, and the balance. The rule of law equals rule of personality. I think you speak on checks and balances.
Mm-hmm.
You
It's
know,
key.
power must be answerable, not absolute. Strong
Mm-hmm.
leadership equals unchecked authority. Well, without that, take that back. Without that, let me correct myself. Without that, uh, strong leadership, not harness, is unchecked authority, which leads to oppression.
Right.
Protect the voice and the feedback. Oppression thrives when people cannot speak or challenge authority. Healthy societies don't silence opposition; they use it to redefine leadership. Limit the duration of power. Term limits or rotational or leadership. Long History shows long unchecked rule often leads to corruption or detachment of ideas. Educate the population. Strong society is not just well led, it is aware. You got to
Hmm.
align the leadership with service. When leadership becomes self serving, oppression follows naturally. Leadership is a responsibility, not a privilege. And all of those things, every single one of those things apply right here,
Yeah.
right now, what we're going through.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There are currently no checks and balances in our
Yeah,
current system or administration.
No, there's not.
Yeah.
no.
All right. So my bullet point number 2 is expansion and influence. So Egypt's expansion into Nubia was likely a combination of all three, meaning that it was primarily driven by economic growth and insecurity. Nubia had a valuable resource, especially gold. It controlled key trade routes deeper into Africa, and controlling Nubia also protected Egypt's southern border. So economic growth, access to wealth and trade, survival, security, equal protecting borders and resources, and then dominance. Nature it naturally flows once power is established. Okay. Um, so my question is to you, brothers, is was Egypt's expansion to Nubia more about survival, economic growth, or dominance? And how do we see similar patterns today?
I think it was about uh, dominance. Primarily about the control. As we have seen, so far, gold is
Hmm.
definitely about the resources, and
Hmm.
Nubia, had one of the richest regions in the world, in the ancient world, gold. The control of the trade routes, was always plays a
Right.
major role in a major role into the power of these kingdoms. Who controls the trade? Who controls the flow of the trade?
Right.
Um, military in the buffer zone. Along the Nile in those cataracts. Being how they were designed, that provided a lot of stability into the region, and Egypt wanted that. Along with the prestige and imperial power. Um, I think it was a little bit of both. The gold, economic power, trade routes, control the valuable goods and connection,
Hmm.
security,
Right.
protecting other borders and preventing threats, and the prestige, the pharaonic authority and the cosmic order. Newly,
Right.
go ahead. Go ahead. I'm done. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, man, you're right. Based on the text, Egypt's expansion into Nubia was primarily about wealth, resources, strategic control, especially gold and valuable materials.
Hmm.
It was also about the securing of trade routes and extending Egyptians' political influence deeper into the south.
Yes,
Mhm.
sir. Yes, sir.
And you say, how does that apply to today? So that goes along too with, you know, oil. Oil is, that's the to see the illusion is given that we're going after these countries for this and that and the other, but it's always about resources.
Right.
The majority, it's always about resources, and oil is a big indicator of that today. What's going on with Iran and what's happening in Venezuela. You know, we are is painted a picture different for us. Tends to be always an interior motive when those things come to light years down the road.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah, but things are a little different now. You know, in the time of this text is talking about in the ancient Egypt time, um, we didn't have the technology like we have today. And so resources are a little bit different for them versus now. When we have an abundance. And our oil today, in my opinion, the oil, yeah, that's the big thing in our world. That's what powers everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're using that over people's head to control us, because I believe there's a
That's
better
true.
route and there's better technologies out there that's being suppressed, in my opinion,
Hmm.
to be able
Right.
to control us.
Right. Right.
If all the wealth is everyone with oil, that's a good way to control people, because there's only so much energy we can produce with it.
Right. Right. Okay. All right, brothers.
And then
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna also think about everything that's made with it. It controls our lives.
Hmm.
It's affected our health. This oil, I mean, it's in your shoes. Petroleum products are everywhere.
Right.
It's in
Everywhere.
everything,
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
and it doesn't have to be.
That's
There's
true.
other ways to do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's a great point. All right, brothers. So next I have religion and social equality. So the shift shows a major evolution into Egypt's view of human worth and moral responsibility. Earlier periods emphasized only pharaohs had full access to the afterlife. Divine status was led to hierarchy. All right, but during the Middle Kingdom, more people could reach the afterlife if they live according to Mayat. Moral behavior became more important than a social rank. So this suggests that a growing belief that all people had spiritual value, a shift from status-based worth, behavior-based worth, right? In the reflections, it's society became more ethical, consciously ethical, and it included at least a spirituality of it as well too, and a focus on individual accountability. So my question to you, gentlemen, is what does the shift toward broader access to the afterlife say about changing views of equality and human value in Egyptian society?
You know,
Uh,
in the oh, go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead, bro.
All right. As you mentioned about the pharaoh, so the afterlife was mainly about the pharaoh and the elite. Texts like the pyramid texts they were reserved for the kings. Uh, in the Middle Kingdom, the coffin text and then the Book of the Dead, spread beyond the royalty. Non-elites could afford the spells and the rituals and the burial goods. So the afterlife, the thought, judgment of the afterlife became universal. And so what that revealed was about equality, in that divine worth was not, concentrated on the king. Later on, every person had a soul worth saving. So it just didn't depend on royalty. Everybody mattered in that regard, and so you know you weren't just saved because of rank. You was based on your actions and your moral conduct. And we had read about this, in Mr. Churchward's book.
Mhm.
It wasn't about how many wars you did or how many um about your wealth and whatnot. It was about karma, how you
Right.
lived your life. Is how you would judge. A poor person could succeed in afterlife. A powerful person, corrupt, could fail. So, it's more about ethics than anything else. So the shift, shows that a civilization evolved from only the divine rulers eternal to all humans participate in eternity if they live rightly. That was a major philosophical leap.
Yeah, I mean, I think the shift suggests that the Egyptian religion gradually became less exclusive and more open to the people than just the king alone. So it reflects the growing idea that spiritual worth and the hope of eternal life were not just for royal privileges, but something broader groups of people could participate in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we
I think probably definitely helped their society.
we have Nick in the chat. Really has two questions. So first question is, do you think that the current economic situation, the U.S. dollar, is decreasing at an alarming rate? Do you think that it's going to harm the U.S. economy? The next question is, even though gold is slowly declining, also, do y'all think gold will be in the end become become to the end gold in the end become a must? So will gold at the end become a must?
Mm.
Um, well, I think the reason why our U.S. dollar is decreasing is because they keep on printing more money, and there's nothing to back that money.
That is so true.
There's just more of it. So inflation's going up, and we have no control over that.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, yeah.
And gold, I honestly, no, I don't think it's going to matter in the future.
Mm, mm.
I think it has in the past, but I don't think that we're controlled like gold is anymore. I think the rate of currency in the future is going to be something that we don't really know yet.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I can see that. And with the you're talking about the printing of the money. We are absolutely, listen, just printing paper that we don't have. We have nothing to back that, and we started just printing off, and it is just wild. And with the gold, it's hard to say. It still plays it certainly still plays a role in today's society, and in whatever country most countries, I won't say most, but I know some countries do still back their their currency with gold. Um, in the future, who knows?
Yeah,
Who knows?
yeah. As far as the U.S. dollar, I'm with you guys as far as the printing of money, and it's funny how the United States clarifies the reason for doing it. So when the U.S. government is unable to pay their bills, they print more money.
Yes.
When they're unable to pay their bills, they print more money. Okay. So
And they use war to justify the reason for printing the money.
yes, they do. Yes, they do. And as far as gold, gold has been a prominent force for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And, no matter how the U.S. economy looks at it would always be a prominent source. If you look at it right now, China has been buying a lot of gold for the past decade. And matter of fact, they're looking to also back the BRICS system up with gold. You know what I mean? And so, and I believe that's another reason why gold was going up here just a few months ago. Um, and so I think gold, silver, a lot of these prominent metals will outlast the world economies from time on and time on.
I can see that one. I can see it because it seems like to be not an overabundance, but there just always has been. When you think about what we've read about gold itself from from antiquity, it is still a prominent player in today's world.
Yeah.
And even if currencies do fail, there will still be those rare and precious minerals
Hmm.
to to sustain or to build back up again. Those not going anywhere.
Right. Right.
So he posted another question. So does the unknown of the future currency, how is that going to affect you, and how in your family going to adjust for your children?
I think being informed.
True.
I mean, because gold can go two ways, in my opinion. I'm not super educated in this stuff, but I mean, in my opinion, I think gold for our future specifically, with when it comes to technology. If we blow ourselves up, gold may revert back to being currency again,
Right.
or gold in the future, if we can get along and our technology increases. It seems to be that the more technology increases, the more requirement gold is needed for that technology. So as new inventions happen, gold may be the resource required for that technology versus being the currency we use like dollars today.
Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to me, I have been stacking gold, silver, and rare commodities for the past 10 to 15 years, in order to protect my family and my children. And I do know my brother is the CEO of a solar panel company, and he has encouraged me to stack more silver because of what it takes to build these solar panels. It takes silver to do so.
Hmm.
And so, and like Chris and Robert both have mentioned, based upon technology, these certain commodities and minerals go into technology itself. When you think about the Tesla batteries of these vehicles, it's silver that is a major conductor. Um, so I do think that it is wise for us to look outside the common concept of the narrow path of the U.S. economy, and start to invest into other economies or other tangible items. Because if things do get bad, these are tangible items you can use to be successful. Because when you start looking into even just everyday movies and things like that, it's always about resources. If the
Hmm.
world collapses and a group of people find a water hole, that water hole, whoever finds that water hole, he literally becomes king of the water hole and starts to
Hmm.
dissect the water and give it out to the people himself, which creates a kingdom. You know what I mean? And so, but I am with Chris on this too, and RP and Robert. It's not just going to be gold and silver. It will be water. It would be other natural resources. Will be a huge commodity to how we live and how we preserve ourselves in the future. So gold would once again maybe be a luxury or an elite thing, but
Hmm.
having water and having food and other resources could be an everyday survival.
Yeah, hey, you both are absolutely correct. Chris, you're right. You must stay informed. It is highly suggested that you do that so you can stay aware of what's going on in the world. And Haru, you are correct as well too. So I'm alone. You have got me turned on to collecting gold and things like that because I wouldn't put you know too much emphasis on. I mean, you have to have it now because it is still there, but the currency. However, you need to look outside that box to insulate yourself with other things that can help you sustain your life and resources. Those precious metals and those resources, and you mentioned water as well too. I think that would certainly enhance and give you a foundation if something were to go wrong. You'd have something else there to sustain you and your family. Absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
you both are right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's something too, even with Chris about the information world, that's something that has really been manipulated. You
Mm-hmm.
see videos, there have been some shootings in Minnesota and all that, but what's the accuracy on that? You know what I mean? We
Mm-hmm.
see these videos and we're informed on these videos to media and to whoever controls the media, but our information nowadays is starting really to decline. You know what I mean? Because we're not getting true information. We're getting even information that causes to manipulate us based upon our own
Mm-hmm.
perception. You know what I mean? And I think the current administration or the government itself is doing a really good job at doing that because it's really turning their heads and creating more division with people because they really don't know what they're seeing. And they really don't know where the information is coming from that they are gathering.
Absolutely.
So but having groups like who we are and podcasts like this would allow people to get true information, right? And factual
Mm-hmm.
information because we only want to be able to we only want to be able to spread the truth, and truth itself will set you free.
Absolutely. Great stuff. Great stuff.
Yes, sir.
Great stuff. Great conversation. Great conversation. Thank you for the questions, Nick. They were very good. Very good. King Mackie, you
Yes,
got that
sir.
spotlight tonight?
I got the spotlight. So our spotlight tonight is Nikola Tesla. All right. Nikola Tesla was one of the most brilliant inventors in history, a visionary who helped shape the modern world through electricity, engineering, and imagination. Born in 1856 in Croatia, later moved to the United States, worked briefly with Thomas Edison, becoming his own rival. Tesla wasn't just an inventor, he was a futurist thinker ahead of his time. Tesla's idea power your everyday life, even if most people don't realize it. Developing alternative current AC electricity, which is still used worldwide, helped design the modern electrical grid, and created early concepts for wireless communications, radio technology, and remote controls. Without Tesla, modern cities as we know them wouldn't function the same. The War of Currents. Tesla's biggest conflict came during the War of Currents. Tesla supported AC power. Edison pushed DC power. Excuse me. Tesla's AC system won because it could transmit electricity further and more efficiently. Visions ahead of his time. Tesla imagined things long before they existed. Our wireless energy transmissions, global communication networks similar to today's internet, and renewable energy concepts. Tesla was a pioneer in his time, and he exceeded expectations of them all. I've heard something, right? I've heard that John G. Trump, which is Trump's uncle, was a nuclear physicist. And at the time of Nikola Tesla's death, who died poor in a motel, John G. Trump retrieved his information and his research and has used it for his own political power or his family's political power or its state itself. Just a conspiracy theory concept. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of those around
Yeah,
Tesla.
yeah, it is. But anyway, tonight's spotlight was Nikola Tesla, a great engineer and a
Mm-hmm.
pioneer of our modern concepts.
Absolutely. That's a great spotlight. Very great spotlight. Gentlemen, it was been beautiful. It was a great podcast tonight for sure. To those who are following, who are for listening. We encourage your likes, your thoughts, your suggestions, your opinions, your questions. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Riverside FM, with more to come. If you can't watch the videos, you can certainly plug us in and put your earbuds on and listen to our amazing voices and the content that we are bringing.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Tuesday night is open mic night. Encourage you to come on. We got some powerful questions. We ask 5 and we give our insight, and we encourage your thoughts as well. Until then, it's been beautiful, Kings.
Absolutely,
Yes,
brothers.
it has. Yes, it
All right,
has.
Kings. The next time, love y'all. Y'all be safe.
You too, man. Love you.